All right, let's get those headphones warmed up because today we're diving deep, really deep, into the world of electronic dance music production.
Excited to jump in.
Absolutely. You know those excerpts you sent over from Rick Snowman's Dance Music Manual? Fourth edition, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a bit intimidating, not gonna lie. Packed with so much info.
It is dense, but that's Snowman for you. He goes all in. The good thing is he breaks down even the most complex ideas into pieces you can actually grasp, you know?
Right, right. So whether you're just starting out or you've been producing for years, there's something here for you.
Definitely.
So let's start with the fundamentals.
Sounds good.
What IS sound? Really? I mean, we hear it constantly, but do we really get what it is sound?
Yeah, it's a good question to start with. At its most basic, sound is just, well, vibration.
Vibration.
Think of a speaker cone. It moves back and forth, right?
Yeah.
It's pushing those air molecules around, creating waves. Those waves travel to our ears, and that's what we perceive as sound.
So when we crank up the volume and we feel that bass line like in our chest,
Yeah.
it's actually those air molecules going crazy.
You got it. The intensity of that vibration, what we experience as loudness, is called amplitude. More amplitude equals more forceful air movement, so those chest-thumping bass lines, they're packing some serious amplitude.
So that physical sensation is literally the sound waves hitting us.
Yeah.
That's wild. Okay, the book mentions something called the Fletcher-Munson curve. What is that all about?
Ah, yes, the Fletcher-Munson curve. Basically, it shows that our ears don't perceive all frequencies equally at different volumes.
So like bass frequencies sound different at low volume than at high volume.
Kind of. At lower volumes, we're actually less sensitive to the highs and lows. But as the volume increases, our perception evens out.
So what if I'm mixing at a low volume, I might need to crank up the bass and treble a bit to compensate.
Precisely. You need to account for that to make sure your mix sounds good on different systems, whether it's blasting through a club system or someone's listening on earbuds.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm always struggling with my mix sounding different on different systems. So
Yeah.
we've got sound waves, amplitude. What about waveforms? The book talks a lot about those.
Waveforms are basically visual representations of those sound waves. They show us the shape of the vibration over time.
And different shapes mean different sounds.
Absolutely. You've got your basic sine wave, which is a pure tone, very smooth.
Yeah.
Then there are triangle waves. They're a bit brighter. Sawtooth waves have that buzzy quality, often used in synths.
And pulse waves.
Ah, yes. Also called square waves. Those have a kind of hollow sound, perfect for bass lines.
Cool. Then there's noise, like white noise, pink noise. To me, that just sounds like static.
They can sound like that, sure, but they have specific uses in music production.
Really?
White noise, it has equal energy across all frequencies. Pink noise has more energy in the lower frequencies. They're great for sound effects, adding texture.
So white noise is like the static on a TV screen. Pink noise, more like the rumble of thunder.
That's actually a great analogy.
Cool. So we've covered sound waves, waveforms, amplitude, but none of that matters if we don't have the right gear to actually create these sounds, right? Snowman really gets into the nitty-gritty of this stuff.
He does, and it's important. The equipment you use, it shapes the sound you create. It all starts with the audio interface. That's the connection between your instruments and the computer.
And latency is a big deal here. Ugh, that annoying delay when you're trying to record, it really kills my flow. What causes that exactly?
Latency is simply the time it takes for the audio signal to travel through the entire system. So if you have a slow interface, it can create these noticeable delays.
Makes recording a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. The book talks about things like zero latency monitoring.
Zero latency monitoring.
Yeah, you basically hear the sound directly from the interface, bypassing the computer.
So a direct line from my instrument to my ears, no detours.
Exactly. No more frustrating delay. Makes recording way smoother.
Good to know. I'm going to look for that feature next time I'm shopping for an interface. The book also talks about cables balanced versus unbalanced. I always thought this was just about, keeping things neat and tidy, but it seems like there's more to it.
There is. Balanced cables are actually designed to reject interference.
Interference.
Yeah, like those annoying hums or buzzes you sometimes get in your recordings. Unbalanced cables are more susceptible to that. So keeping your synths close to the interface, especially if they're using unbalanced cables, can help.
Huh. So it's not just about aesthetics, it's about keeping the signal clean.
Gotcha.
What about monitors and headphones? What should I be looking for there?
The most important thing is accurate sound reproduction. You want monitors and headphones that have what's called a flat response.
Flat response.
Yeah, they don't color the sound, meaning they don't boost or cut certain frequencies. If your monitors are hyping the bass, you might think your track is booming when it's really not.
Right. Then your mix ends up sounding all weird on other systems.
Yeah.
So flat response helps you hear the sound as it truly is. Okay, now this one's a bit strange. The book mentions something about frequencies above 22 kilohertz getting cramped. What's going on there?
That has to do with the Nyquist theorem, which basically says you need a sampling rate twice the highest frequency to accurately reproduce sound digitally.
Okay.
Most music is recorded at 44.1 kilohertz. So anything above 22 kilohertz, it gets kind of, well, cramped or lost in the digital conversion.
But we can't even hear those super high frequencies.
True, but they can still impact the overall sound. It's kind of like subliminal messages, they're there influencing things even if you don't consciously hear them.
Wow, that's crazy. So all this talk about accurate listening, it makes me think about ear training, which the book calls the secret weapon of music production.
It really is the secret weapon. Just like a musician practices their instrument, producers need to practice listening. Snowman suggests an exercise where you analyze the production of Major Laser's Lean On. Actively listen, try to identify all the different elements of the mix.
That's a cool idea. I'm going to try that. Speaking of listening, before we go any further, can we talk about hearing protection?
Yes, absolutely. Hearing damage is irreversible, so protecting your ears is crucial. Snowman recommends using those filters that are specifically designed for musicians, which reduce volume evenly across all frequencies.
So you can still hear the music clearly, but at a safe level.
Exactly. There are even custom molded ones for maximum comfort. Trust me, you want to protect those ears. They're your most valuable tools.
Good advice. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. Sound, gear, but what are the fun parts? Synthesizers.
Synthesizers, yes.
Snowman goes through different types of synthesis. Subtractive, FM, wavetable.
Yeah.
What are the main differences?
Well, synthesizers are amazing tools you can create sounds from scratch. Subtractive synthesis, the most common type, you start with a rich sound source, like a sawtooth wave, and you use filters to subtract certain frequencies, shaping the sound.
So it's like starting with a block of clay, and you're carving away until you get the shape you want.
Exactly. You're sculpting the sound by removing frequencies. What about FM synthesis?
Yeah, what about FM?
That stands for frequency modulation. It's a bit more complex. You use one oscillator to modulate the frequency of another oscillator, creating these really complex, often unpredictable sounds.
So instead of removing frequencies, you're using one sound wave to warp another one.
Precisely. It can create some really unique sounds. A lot of those classic 80s synth sounds, those were created with FM synthesis.
I love those sounds. What about wavetable synthesis?
Wavetable synthesis uses pre-recorded waveforms that are stored in a table. By moving through the table, you create these really evolving and dynamic sounds.
So you're not generating the sound wave from scratch, you're using a pre-recorded snippet and manipulating it.
Exactly. It opens up a different set of sonic possibilities compared to subtractive or FM.
It's amazing how many different ways there are to create sounds. Okay, we've got our sound sources, but how do we make them come alive? Snowman talks a lot about LFOs and envelopes.
Ah, yes. LFOs and envelopes are the tools that add movement and expression to your synth sounds. LFOs, or low-frequency oscillators, they create these repeating patterns that can modulate things like pitch, filter cutoff, or amplitude.
So they're like the heartbeat of the sound, making it move and groove.
Exactly. They can add that pulsating, wobbling effect you hear in a lot of electronic music.
What about envelopes?
Envelopes control how a sound changes over time.
Okay.
They have parameters like attack, decay, sustain, and release. Those determine how quickly the sound starts, fades, and holds.
So if I wanted to create a slow, evolving pad sound, I would use a long attack and release.
You got it. And if you want a short, punchy sound, you'd use a fast attack and decay. It's all about shaping the sound over time.
I'm starting to see how all these tools work together to create so many different sounds. It's like learning a new language.
That's a great way to put it. And just like with any language, the more you practice and experiment, the more fluent you become.
This has been amazing. I'm already feeling inspired to go fire up my D-Yogu and start playing around with all this stuff.
That's the spirit. We'll continue our deep dive into the world of dance music production in Part 2, where we'll explore sampling, processing, and effects. Don't miss it.
I'll be here, ready to learn more.
Welcome back. You ready to keep going with this dance music deep dive?
Absolutely. Last time we went through those fundamentals, sound, gear, synthesizers. Tons of great stuff in there. But now I'm really curious about sampling. It seems like a whole art form in itself, manipulating those pre-recorded sounds.
Yeah, you're right, it is. It's not as simple as just grabbing a sound and dropping it in. Snowman, he takes us through the evolution of sampling. From those old hardware samplers like the Akai S950
The S950, that's a
to
classic.
the software we use today. It's come a long way.
It really has. But practically speaking, how does it work? I mean, I get that now you can just drag and drop samples into your DAW, but what are the techniques that really bring them to life?
It's all in the techniques. Snowman talks about velocity mapping. That's where the force you hit a key with actually affects how the sample sounds.
Oh, interesting.
It adds realism, like a drummer hitting a snare harder for a more powerful sound.
So you're kind of playing the sample like an instrument.
Exactly. It's about going beyond that static sound and making it your own.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Any other cool techniques?
He talks about switching and crossfading techniques, so that's blending different samples together.
Okay.
It could be based on velocity or other parameters. Imagine a hi-hat sample that changes subtly depending on how hard you hit the key. Adds more nuance.
Yeah, that's a great way to add some variation. What about loop slicing? I hear producers talking about that all the time.
Loop slicing, yeah. That's where you take a sample and chop it up into smaller pieces.
Literally slicing it.
Yeah. And then you rearrange them. You can create whole new rhythms, grooves.
So you're taking an existing loop and making it your own.
Exactly. Adapting it to your style.
Clever. Okay, but before we get too carried away with all this chopping and slicing, we have to talk about sample clearance. That legal stuff can get messy.
Definitely. You can't just use any sample you find in your music if you're releasing it commercially. Snowman talks about this in the book. Copyright law is important.
I know some producers think, oh, it's just a small sample, no one will notice. But that's not how it works.
Right? Not at all. Even a tiny sample can get you in trouble if you don't clear it properly. He says that the cost of clearance varies, depending on things like the sample's length, the original artist's popularity, all sorts of stuff.
It's always better to be safe than sorry, right? Get clearance if you're not sure.
Exactly. All right, so let's say we have our sounds, whether it's synthesized or sampled. Now it's time to shape them, process them, and compression, that's a big one.
It is. I'm still wrapping my head around all those parameters.
Mm-hmm.
Threshold, ratio, attack, release. Can you break those down a bit?
Sure. Threshold, that's the level where the compressor actually starts working. Any signal above the threshold, that gets compressed. Ratio determines how much the signal gets compressed.
Okay.
So higher ratio means more compression, a more squashed sound.
So threshold is like the bouncer at a club, and ratio is how hard he throws you out.
That's one way to think about it. It's all about controlling the dynamics, making the quiet parts louder, the loud parts quieter.
Gotcha. What about attack and release?
Attack, that's how quickly the compressor kicks in once the signal crosses the threshold. Release is how quickly it lets go. These affect the feel of the compression, whether it's punchy or smooth.
So you can tweak them to match the specific sound.
Absolutely. It's all about finding the sweet spot that enhances the sound without crushing it.
Makes sense. The book talks about different types of compressors too, like solid state versus valve compression. What's the difference there?
Well, solid state compressors, they use transistors. Valve compressors, they use those old vacuum tubes.
And those are supposed to sound warmer, right? That's the tubes.
It is. The tubes add those subtle distortions that give a warmer, richer sound. It's a subtle difference, but noticeable.
So it's like the difference between a digital photo and a film photo. They each have their own character.
Exactly. Then you have side chaining. That's another technique.
Side chaining, yeah. What is that all about?
That's where you use one sound to control the dynamics of another.
Okay.
It's used a lot to create that pumping effect.
Oh, like an EDM tracks.
Yeah, where the bass ducks out of the way when the kick drum hits, creating space, rhythmic groove.
So the kick drum is actually triggering the compressor on the bass.
Exactly.
It's like they're dancing together rhythmically.
Yeah.
Cool. Aside from compression, what other processing tools does Snowman cover?
He talks about gates. Those silence unwanted noise, anything below a certain threshold.
So if I have a noisy recording, a gate can help clean it up.
It can. They can also be used for creative effects, like chopping up a sustained sound.
He mentions transient designers, too. What are those for?
Transient designers, those let you shape the attack and sustain of a sound. Okay.
You can make drums hit harder, soften the piano's attack, things like that.
So if I want my snare to really crack, I need a transient designer.
That's one way to use it. Then you have expanders, which are sort of the opposite of compressors.
Oh, really? How so?
Expanders increase the dynamic range, so the quiet parts get quieter, the loud parts get louder. They're used to add breath, airiness to a sound.
I see. So many tools to play with. It's like a whole sonic toolbox. And
Yeah.
that's not even getting into effects.
Oh, yeah. Effects, those are the spices. We've
Yeah.
got reverb, delay, chorus, flanging,
Mm-hmm.
even filtering, but on audio this time, not just synths. They add depth, atmosphere, texture, all that good stuff.
Reverb is a classic. I love playing around with it.
Reverb simulates the reflections of sound in a space, making it sound like it's in a huge cathedral or a tiny bathroom, whatever you want.
Exactly. The book talks about parameters like decay, pre-delay, density. What are those all about?
Well, decay is how long the reverb lasts. Pre-delay, that's the time it takes for the reverb to kick in after the initial sound.
I see. Adds realism, depth, density. That's how thick the reverb is, how many reflections are happening.
So you can really fine-tune the reverb to get the exact vibe you're going for.
Precisely. Then there's delay, which can create simple echoes or these complex rhythmic patterns.
I love experimenting with delay. How do you create those rhythmic patterns with it?
It's all about timing and feedback. Imagine setting a delay with a long feedback time and playing some notes. The delayed notes will overlap and create a rhythmic cascade.
That sounds amazing. What about chorus and flanging? Those always sound so thick and lush. How do they actually work?
Both create a doubling effect, but in slightly different ways. Chorus, it uses subtle variations in pitch and timing to create a wider sound.
Like a chorus of singers, each slightly out of tune.
Exactly. Flanging, that uses a changing delay time. It creates that whooshing jet plane effect.
Cool. So chorus adds shimmer and flanging adds movement. What about this filtering on audio you mentioned?
Filters aren't just for synths. You can use them on any audio signal. Like, use a high-pass filter to remove the low end of a vocal, make it sound thinner.
So it's like EQ, but more dynamic.
Yeah, you could say that. It's about shaping the sound. Then there's this thing called glitching.
Glitching.
It's like it sounds, intentionally adding those digital artifacts or errors.
You're messing with the audio on purpose.
Yep, slicing it up, offsetting it. It creates that broken transmission vibe you hear in a lot of dubstep, controlled chaos.
That's wild. So many ways to manipulate sound.
We've only scratched the surface. In part 3, we'll get into even more advanced stuff, mixing, mastering, even how to get your music out there in the world.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back. So much good stuff in parts 1 and 2. My head's spinning a bit, but in a good way.
Yeah. What's standing out to you?
I think the main thing is just how important ear training is. You can have the best gear, the best software, but if your ears aren't up to snuff, it's all for nothing.
That's the foundation, for sure. Like Snowman says, it's a skill you have to train your ears just like you train your fingers to play an instrument.
Makes you wonder if there are any, ear training gyms we could go to. Pump some audio iron,
Maybe one day. But seriously, that McGurk effect was a real eye-opener. The fact that what you see can actually change what you hear, it's wild.
It's crazy. It makes you realize how important it is to really trust your ears, use those A/B comparisons, maybe even close your eyes while mixing sometimes.
Exactly. And that's why having those flat response monitors and headphones is so important. You need that neutral reference point.
Yeah, otherwise you're mixing in a fantasy land and your track is going to sound totally different everywhere else.
Exactly. Speaking of different, that whole breakdown of genres was interesting. Each one really has its own distinct sound, its own rules almost.
It is. It's like they all have their own sonic signature, a fingerprint.
But that doesn't mean you can't experiment, bend those rules, borrow from different styles. That's where the real innovation happens, right?
Absolutely. I was thinking about that part about how those specific instruments, the Roland TB-303 and the TR-909, they shape the sound of house music.
Yeah. It really makes you think, what are those instruments today that are going to be shaping the sounds of tomorrow? What's the next 303?
Right. The next 909. What a question. I guess that's the beauty of music production. It's always evolving.
Exactly. Something that's cutting edge today might be totally commonplace tomorrow. The key is to stay curious, to experiment, find your own voice.
Love that. Find your own voice. It's not about copying, it's about pushing things forward. That's where those drum design tips come in, right? Layering kicks, crafting percussion. It's like sonic sculpting.
You got it. Create those rhythms that make people want to move.
I was really surprised by that suggestion of using reverb on a kick drum. I always thought that was a big no-no.
It can be tricky, but when it's done subtly, it can add depth and weight. You have to use the right type of reverb, a short decay time, and careful EQ.
So it's not about following strict rules. It's about knowing the tools and how to use them creatively.
Exactly. That same principle applies to mixing, which a lot of people find intimidating, but it really comes down to understanding the fundamentals and practicing.
That part about frequency masking and all the different EQ strategies, that was gold.
It's like learning to see the sound, identifying where those instruments are clashing, then using EQ to carve out space.
And mastering, that's a whole other level. It's like taking a good mix and making it great, louder, more polished, ready for the world.
It is a specialized skill, but even just understanding the basics helps you work better with a mastering engineer.
Yeah, that's true. And then once the track is mastered, you got to get it out there. That section about publishing and promotion, wow, there's a lot to think about.
It's a whole other side of the music industry, but the fundamentals haven't changed. Build your online presence, engage with your fans, connect with DJs, promote your music.
It's a lot of work, but it's also amazing how much opportunity there is for independent artists these days. You don't need a big label anymore.
That's right, the tools are out there, you just have to know how to use them and build genuine connections with people.
So much great information in the Dance Music Manual. What's the one thing you want to leave our listeners with?
I'd say this: never stop learning, never stop experimenting, and don't be afraid to break the rules. The book is a great guide, but the magic happens when you take that knowledge and apply it to your own creativity. Music production is a journey, not a destination. Have fun, make noise.
Love it. That's what it's all about. Well, thanks for joining me for this deep dive into dance music production. I hope you're feeling inspired to go make some music that moves you, and as Rick Snowman says, keep those speakers pumping.